elfmember.com. You Genius Network members who have friends who aren't quite at the $1 million level yet, if you want to introduce them to elfmember.com, you're going to be amazed at what we're doing in that group and how cheap it is. So anyway, okay, let's see here. We're going to start in just a minute. And let me see if we can say hello to one more person before we start. Schwa, we have to. You're holding up hold up that book, Persuasion. Oh my gosh. And you're kind of disappearing, but we see the book, and that's more important. We see a bunch of others. It's so good to see everyone. Before we start, I just want to say that Joe Polish is on sabbatical this year. I personally, and we miss Joe. We love Joe. Joe introduced me to Robert Cialdini and Dean Jackson years ago. And he's introduced me to a lot of really cool people. But I know Dr. Cialdini, Joe was speaking with you some time ago and talking about with you and Babette and being a guest on this. So we're just delighted that you're with us. I mean, it's the godfather of influence. So I think it's time to start. Top of the hour or bottom of the hour, however you want to put that. So I'm going to go ahead and formally introduce our guest. Dr. Robert Cialdini is the pioneer in the psychology of influence, developing, conducting, and publishing award-winning scientific research. That wasn't enough for him. It was his ability to translate the science into meaningful applications that made his universal principles of persuasion so accessible to us all. And it was his fervor for the ethical use of these universal principles that made us all breathe a sigh of relief. Who knew that this traditionally trained academic would end up being a leader in this field? Actually, in many ways, he created this field. Who knew that he would develop and popularize a field that is now part of marketing, leadership, sales, digital communication, and even government policy? Looking back now, we're not surprised. Because of his highly respected research, Dr. Cialdini has earned many honors and accolades, including membership in the National Academy of Sciences and the American Academy of Arts and Science. Perhaps if we had looked back on his life just a little bit, we would have seen a glimpse of what was to come. Some of us are only learning about this today. Please welcome, now listen to this carefully, the Tippy Canoe kindergarten skipping champion, Bobby Cialdini. Welcome.
Well, how do you talk?
Hello.
Tippy Canoe.
Thank you. Tippy Canoe, yes. That was my kindergarten school. And I was very proud of rising to the surface of the skipping crew there.
The skipping crew, I love it. Did you have special uniforms?
No, but I did get an award that I still have.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that. Well, welcome. I am super excited that we get to spend our time together again. I was reflecting before we got started officially that this summer will be 25 years since we first connected, and I can't tell you what an impact influence has had in my life. I mean, it's been one of the foundational books that I've used to build on, in everything that I do. I use all of the principles of influence. It's one of the 3 books that I recommend to people of everything that I've read. If you're going to get started in marketing, that's in the top 3 books that I recommend constantly for people. So I'm excited that we're going to talk about the new and expanded version of this. So, you know what?
Well, I certainly appreciate those kind words coming from you, Dean. That's golden.
Well, I'll tell you something. This is an interesting thing. We talk about 25 years that like it was yesterday, because it feels like yesterday that we were at the Wigwam having dinner with Eben and Babette and hanging out. But I had an experience a couple of summers ago. I had somebody come to one of my Breakthrough Blueprint events, and she was 30 years old, young, bright, young, go-getter, marketer. And in that moment, I realized, she was born in 1990 is when she was born. And I thought, wow, we've got a whole new generation. I bet a lot of the people that are listening and with us even on the Zoom here are, 30-ish type of people who weren't around when when influence first came out. So I think it'd be good if you could maybe tell a little bit about the background of your work, because it's been kind of defined your life's work since then.
Well, as your very gracious introduction suggested, I started out as a traditionally trained and traditionally practicing academic, doing research on my college campus with college sophomores pretty much as the students in laboratory settings, and recognized there was something missing there. And I needed to get away from those academic constraints into the environment where the influence wars are being waged every day, after all. We're always either sending out influence appeals or receiving influence appeals of one sort or another every day. And there are certain people who know how to do this because their economic livelihoods depend on using the influence process properly and effectively.
Mm-hmm.
And it seemed to me that those professions, sales, management, recruiting, fundraising, marketing, advertising, and so on, those were the people who really knew what I should be focusing my thinking on. So
Mm-hmm.
I began to infiltrate their training programs with disguised identity, disguised intent, to learn what they had done that produced yes from people regularly. And I spent 2.5 years in that undercover activity to learn something beyond the college campus where I had been studying this process.
Mm-hmm. And I remember you saying how it was initially because you wanted to learn about these things, not to be a practitioner of them, but to protect yourself from them, or to help people protect themselves from the sort of illicit use of those principles, so
Right.
that people could recognize them.
Exactly. Recognize, resist, deflect, defend.
Yeah.
But it turned out soon after the publication of Influence that a lot of people were interested, besides that,
Yeah.
in harnessing the process
Yeah.
in ethical ways, in morally responsible ways, to move people into positive choices that they could make, that they were hesitant to make. They were sitting on the fence. They just were dithering. They weren't thinking through what exactly the costs and benefits might be. The
Mm-hmm.
merits of one's case were simply not being presented to them in an optimal way. And
Mm-hmm.
so they wanted to know about optimization of the persuasion process for that reason as well.
Hmm. That's what I found when I first started studying it. Like I've always told you, is from the moment I read your book, just the understanding was like having a pair of 3D glasses. All of a sudden, that you see the mechanisms that are at work and why things are turning out the way they are, and the um, this kind of underlying understanding of influence has really helped me in applying the marketing principles then that you can overlay on top of that when you've got an understanding of why people are reacting, how our brains are responding to things. And one of the greatest phrases that you used in the description is that when these are presented, they trigger this click-whirr pattern, that it's almost like an autopilot thing when somebody is presented with this with under the right circumstances, one of the elements of influence, it's almost like instinctual. We can't even, it's not a, they're not reasoning or thinking it, it's just happening automatically.
And you know, the thing about the click that you were talking about, the thing that triggers
Yeah.
their response, it can be a very small thing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I like the metaphor of a light switch.
Mm-hmm.
Suppose you were in charge of lighting a stadium, you know, for a night match or game of some sort or another. You're down in the bowels of the stadium, and there's a there's a switch that you just flick, and suddenly everything is illuminated. All
Mm-hmm.
of a sudden, things are possible that weren't possible before. It didn't take a lot of strength or effort or time on your part. You just had to know how to locate that switch.
Mm-hmm.
And then it's just a little bit of effort, and all of the power that's stored in the power system of that arena
Mm-hmm.
flows because of that small thing you did. It goes against the rule of proportionality. There's a belief that in order to get big effects, we need to do big things
Right.
to change people in substantial ways. It's just not true. There
Mm-hmm.
are big power sources inside people, and our job is to locate the switch that flicks them on, that then drives their behavior.
Mm-hmm. Now, I'm going to ask you something. When Joe Polish and I did our first I Love Marketing conference, it's all about our 8 profit activators. And he asked me a question that was just funny because he asked me, do I know all the 8 profit activators, like without looking? And I'm going to ask you just for fun to just maybe quickly name what the 6 elements of influence are so we can set the context for what we're talking about here.
Sure, would you prefer that I just label them and how they work, or give an example?
Let's just kind of name them first, and then we'll pick kind of
Yeah,
and go through some of them because
that
we've
makes
got
sense.
so many stories. Yeah.
So the first is the rule of reciprocation. People want to say yes to those people who have given to them first, done a favor, a service, provided a gift. People want to give back. So
Mhm.
you go into a room where you want to be more influential. Your first question should not be, who can help me here? It should be, whom can I help here? Whose circumstances can I elevate? Whose outcomes can I increase? They will stand on the balls of their feet wanting to do the same for you.
Mhm.
Next principle is liking. Nobody's surprised that we prefer to say yes to those we like, but there are 2 small things we can do that substantially enhance the feeling of rapport that people feel with us. And one is to point out genuine similarities, and the other is to give genuine compliments or praise as warranted. Right?
Mhm.
Next principle is social proof. This is a term, by the way, that's used. We coined it back in when with the first edition of
Right.
Influence. Social proof didn't exist before. I'm so glad because I was thinking of using people proof. Right, but what's
Yeah.
happened with social media now?
Yeah.
Think about social media.
Social
So I'm
influencers.
so
Right.
glad that I use the term social proof, where the fact that a lot of other people are doing something, especially people like us, is the proof
Mhm.
that we should do it too. It's not fact-based proof, it's not scientific proof, it's not logical proof, it's social proof. So that's the other thing. Simply letting people know of the others who are around them like them, who are choosing or have been choosing our recommended step forward.
Robert,
So
what year, before you continue, what year did the first book come out?
the first book came out in 1984.
Okay, so this was well before anything with the internet. I mean, it was really okay because I was turned on to it in 1996, as you know.
Yeah.
So it had
Okay.
already been out for 12 years, but that was just at the very beginning of the internet. So I'm sorry for interrupting your train, but
No, no, that's
yeah.
exactly the people say to me, Bob, your book is called The Bible of Digital Commerce. There
Oh yeah,
wasn't digital commerce. How
absolutely.
did you see how did you foresee this? How
Hmm.
did you look forward and see this 40 years, 35 years later?
Yeah,
And it was by looking back
right.
at what were the factors that have always driven behavior
Hmm.
in our species. You look
Hmm.
back at the evidence to be able to predict how we as a species will behave in the future.
Yeah, love it. Okay, so social proof. Then carry on.
Next is authority. If we're uncertain about something, one way to reduce our uncertainty is to see what the experts are saying
Mhm.
and what they are doing. And if we have expertise, we have to be sure that the people who we're trying to move in our direction are properly informed of that
Mhm.
before we ever try to influence them.
Mhm.
Next principle is the principle of scarcity, right? Uh, People want more of those things they can have less of. It's just the way we are, right?
Mhm.
So things that are rare, scarce, dwindling in availability, if we properly inform people of those characteristics, they get a little crazy to
I'll
have
tell
them.
you what, that's the absolute truth. I've got some. I'm hyper vigilant of what's going on in my world because I'm aware of all of these things, and so I always kind of observe the situations that I get into, and I see how influence is at work in my life too. And I'll share a couple of stories with you as we go on, but
Please.
please continue. Yeah.
Then the next principle is commitment and consistency. People
Mhm.
want to be consistent
Yes.
with what they have already said or done, especially in our presence,
Hmm.
especially publicly. They
Hmm.
don't want to say one thing, do another, or misspeak by saying one thing and then contradicting it the next time. They want to be congruent with what they have already made a commitment to.
Hmm.
So asking people to take very small steps in our direction causes them to be much more likely to want to continue to take steps, even outsized steps
Hmm.
in our direction in the future.
Hmm.
Right? And then finally, there's a new principle.
That's what I was going to ask you about. So now this is exciting that you got to the point. That's masterwork of the six, and then in revisiting now, you've discovered a final, a new one.
Yes, and I'm calling it unity.
I love
Uh,
that.
but it has to do really with membership in a particular group,
Yes.
right? A tribe or
Hmm.
some in group that defines us. And if a communicator can arrange for us to see him or her as inside that group, one of us,
Yes.
all the influence barriers come down for that communicator.
Hmm.
We say yes to those people, we cooperate with them, we believe them, we trust them. Those people who are of us become people who we want to favor and follow.
I've been wondering about this, um, our capacity now for that, our us group. Um, for years, we would talk about, and still do, about Robin Dunbar's work about the your 150 Dunbar's number, that you can have the relationship with 150 people. And I'm wondering now, because our world has sort of expanded, our access to people has expanded through our digital capabilities. Like, we can be in a room with hundreds of people here, and you're in your office, I'm in mine, and but we're all part of us here. Whether our capacity to kind of consider ourselves part of a group or bonded within an us is expanded because of our digital um, reach.
Yes,
Yeah. What have you
you're
found?
exactly right.
Hmm.
The technology has allowed us to have a connection,
Hmm.
even as you say, bonding
Yeah.
People we would never otherwise have contact with
Right.
because we share an interest or an identity with that individual. We're in a chat group with
Yeah.
that person, or a product,
Yeah.
group, a
Facebook group
branding
or a
group.
forum or a membership area. Yeah.
And we feel one of them. We're of them, and
Yeah.
that is remarkable. I'll give you a couple of examples how it doesn't have to be small at all. It can be sizable.
Mhm.
So, for example, there was a great study that was done on a college campus. So this wasn't in technology, but researchers had a young woman, looked like a student,
Mhm.
uh, asking students who were walking by if they would make a contribution to the United Way. And she was getting some kind of response. If she preceded that request with one statement, she increased by 250% the number of contributions. The sentence was, I'm a student here too.
Mm.
And now 250% greater compliance.
Wow. Isn't that something? You just like, you have to, when you say things like that, when I read your book, I've read your both persuasion and influence multiple times. I keep them by in my office and in my library as readers that I kind of will open up and just get a study, read one of the things, and then kind of meditate on it. Like you're saying, when you say things like that, I have to and just let that sink in for a second, because
Yeah,
if you put a number to it, that if she's sitting out there for any number of time and without that sentence, she's sitting there and she's able to raise $100, let's
right,
say, and then in the same amount of time, by adding this little phrase, she's able to raise $250.
right.
It's
Well,
pretty amazing.
yeah, what I like about it is that it shows us how small the change can be to
Mhm,
flip on that big power source
mhm.
inside people. In this case, the power source is, oh, I'm of this. This person is of us,
Yeah.
one of us,
Mhm,
with four words.
mhm.
Yeah,
And you don't even, yeah, it doesn't even, it
it,
wouldn't, you wouldn't think that that would be the big shift.
right. The power is not in us. It's what we have turned on
Mhm,
in the recipient of our message. The
mhm.
power, what are the big power sources that exist that drive their behavior? And this unity is one of them.
I've
I'll
been
give you a
thinking about,
personal example.
okay, yeah.
A few months ago, I read a newspaper. I grew up in Wisconsin, right, where the um National Football League home team has always been the Green Bay Packers. So I've been an avid Packer fan for all my life. So I read in this newspaper article that the two celebrities, Justin Timberlake and Lil Wayne, both musical artists, right, are also avid Packer fans. Dean, I immediately appreciated their music more and wished them greater success.
There we go. That's it.
So it can be many people. I would never have had an interaction with Justin Timberlake or Little,
Easy.
but
That's
I
easy.
want them to win now because they're of me.
That's so funny. I could just see Lil Wayne blaring out of your office on campus there. That's right. Your homeboy. He's your Wisconsin brother. That's so great.
Except he didn't even grow up in Wisconsin. He just likes the Packers like me.
Yeah. But that's so funny that that's you think about that as soon as and you talk about this in influence too, the uniform, that the home team, it's us, that you're that belonging, but then we're only when we're winning. But when we lose, it's they lost.
Yeah,
But we want to distance ourselves
yeah,
from the losses. But we won
yeah.
and they lost. Yeah,
So
that's really interesting.
one way you can get people to want to be at one with you
Mhm.
is to show them your success. They
Mm.
want to be of people of attainment
Mhm.
so they can share that identity.
Mhm. That's something that's interesting. One of the ways that I've used that in marketing, in presenting information, is we'll often I go away from um, testimonials, where like calling them testimonials, and shape it more towards, I coined a phrase, Bob, called contentimonials. And what I do is present things as field reports from, so somebody sharing the result that they got in the field of deploying this method or this principle or whatever they've done, and coming back to report on their success with that is much more valuable than a testimonial of them saying, "Oh, I tried it. It was great. I really like Bob. He's
Yeah.
he's wonderful." You know, which are not really adding any value to people. I like to frame it so you can get this, and if somebody is like, they see somebody like them getting a result using this method, they feel like, well, that guy did it. I want to be a field report. I could do this too.
Man, great minds work together because we've done that in the various editions of Influence through the years. We have something called readers' reports.
Oh, yes, right. Perfect.
Exactly what you're saying. We
Yeah.
ask people, these principles we've been talking about. If you want to write in and tell us about a time that you saw one of these principles work for you
Hmm.
or on you, send it in. We'll publish it.
Hmm.
This has been one of the greatest pluses
Hmm.
of subsequent editions of the book to
Hmm.
have numerous of those readers' reports for exactly the reason you say. It gives people some more content than
Hmm.
just, oh, thumbs up.
Yeah.
It says, here's why thumbs up, and here's how it worked for
Yeah.
me or on me. Yeah.
Now, let me ask you something, because one of the things that I've been kind of experimenting with right now, so this will be good. I'm gonna kind of impose on you to brainstorm with me through this process. Help me explain what my thinking is. That um, is there a difference? I'm suspecting that there is, on sharing a field report or sharing something where it is almost intended for others in the group. Like, let's say, so we have a community of real estate agents that are all deploying the same principles, the same marketing strategies that we use. And what these field reports that I'm letting outsiders, like people that we're trying to include in the or invite to come into the group, I'm positioning the field reports as they're for the other inside members, and that I'm letting the outsiders are sort of getting to voyeur in on this. It's almost like they're observing a communication between the insiders that maybe they shouldn't be seeing. Do you understand what I'm saying? And is there
Yeah, I do.
anything to that about why
Well,
that?
there's an exclusivity there.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Very powerful.
Hmm.
When we have access to scarce information,
Yeah.
we've done some research on this, it
Hmm.
greatly increases the likelihood that people will treat that information as
Hmm.
something to act on.
Where I came, like, it was, and I'm wondering about what's at play where, when it's almost like if you present a field report in a way like directly to them, there's still sort of this thing that it's being created to convince them to do something else or to think a new way. But if we're presenting it in a way that it's not actually for you, it's for other members to
Uh,
share the successes that they're having. And you're seeing this. It's almost like your guard is down because it wasn't like a trained sales presentation for you.
Right.
There's
Right.
something, I don't know what that is. There's the
Well, it is that people resist the idea of
mhm,
being persuaded.
yes,
They have this sense of autonomy and they
discovery.
want to be, independent, and they don't like being moved, even though the persuader may have the best of intentions,
Yeah,
trying to
absolutely.
give them new information they don't
Yeah,
have, right?
yeah,
But that idea really causes people to push back. So that's a kind of an automatic strategy that people have.
yeah.
Uh, and I think that's what you're
I heard
getting at. Where if you're talking to somebody else about this idea,
mm,
then it's not pushing you. You're just learning about it.
yes, that's right. I found I saw an interview with Scooter Braun, who's Justin Bieber's manager, the guy that discovered Justin Bieber on YouTube. And he said something that was really interesting. Almost said it in the side of an interview, that when he was sort of building up the legend of Justin as he was developing him, he would never let Justin do a video on YouTube that started out with where him addressing the camera, saying, "Hi, I'm Justin. This is my new song. I hope you like it," kind of thing. Every video that he presented was kind of off to the side, or that somebody captured this and recorded it while he's doing something in somebody's living room, or he's busking on the street,
Yeah.
and you're through the lens, the POV of discovering him, as opposed to him trying to convince you to like him. And it was something
Yeah.
interesting, that there's subtlety to that.
There is, and it just fits with the research in persuasion science. There was a study done a number of years ago by a woman named Elaine Hatfield that showed that if you give somebody a persuasive appeal and somebody else overhears it, the
Mm.
person who overhears it is more convinced.
Oh, that's what I'm thinking. So that's perfect. I'll have to get with you to get that research, because that's exactly what I was trying to um, understand. That makes total sense now.
And there's even some research because there are certain circumstances where you can't. I mean, you're trying to persuade somebody. That's
Yeah,
the deal, right? It's you know,
but
you can't hide that.
when you're overhearing it, you're just listening,
Right.
because you don't have to have your defenses up. You're not engaged at that, because it's not coming directly at you. That makes total sense.
And now there's a new piece of research that shows that if you have to convince people
Mhm,
directly because that's your job, but they know that that's what you're trying to do, there's something you can say after you finished your appeal
mhm,
that reduces this resistance.
mhm.
Right? It is to say, of course, it's completely up to you.
Mm. That's I love this, giving somebody that whole thing. This is great. I feel good about all the things that we're doing now, but all directly root cause of my first studying of your work. I've built on everything that I've done on that foundation.
Yeah.
So at the end of every email that we send, we add something that I call our super signature, which says, "Whenever you're ready, here are
Ah,
three
see,
ways we can help you."
that's
And
it.
and I think that what you just said there, we're detaching somebody from, "I'm not trying to
Yeah.
convince you, but I'm willing and enthusiastic to accommodate you if you're ready to do something now." But we're saying, "Whenever you're ready,
No,
here's how we can
that's
help."
another example. Now that one hasn't been tested, but I
Maybe I could be a field
that
report
works.
or a reader report in the next upcoming edition.
Yeah.
That'd be fantastic. Well, what would be one of the most surprising things that you learned? Like, because I know when you had shared in a conversation with Joe and I, when you were thinking about uh, you know updating the book, that you initially thought, well, it's solid, but there's been so many developments there. What was the most surprising thing, or a couple of things that you really either
Yeah.
surprised you or delighted you?
Well, let me tell you that it wasn't an easy decision to do this update because, there's this old saying, don't fix what isn't broken.
Right.
This book, the previous edition has been very good to me. Sold more copies than I could have sensibly imagined in 44 languages. In fact, I have a colleague, a Polish colleague, Professor Wilhelmina Wosinska. She said to me, Robert, your book Influence is so famous in Poland, my students think you're dead.
Oh my goodness.
Which I thought was a sobering but affirming commentary on the success of the book. But then I also remembered a quote that my grandfather used to love. Right? It was, if you want things to stay the same, things are going to have to change around here.
That's great.
And I bet it applies to all of the people in the network who are now online watching this. They've been a lot of them have been successful. Right?
Yeah.
You don't stay successful by
Mm.
doing the same thing. By staying where you are. You have to always move forward, shark in the water. You're always moving forward. Otherwise, you get left behind. And
Mm-hmm.
that's what my grandfather was saying. If you
Mm-hmm.
want this to continue to be a good situation,
Yeah.
things are going to have to change. So
Yes.
I realized there was a need for this new edition. It had been 14 years since the last edition. A lot of new research was available, and I wanted, including that new principle that I
Yeah.
wanted to put in there.
Yeah.
Now, the question of what surprised me most, I'd say there were several things I could probably raise to the surface here. There was a study done that contradicted everything I had been doing when I was trying to get colleagues on board with a new approach or an initiative or an idea I had that I wanted to run up the hierarchy,
Mm-hmm.
and get a buy-in from top people. First, I had to get buy-in from the people around me. I wanted their assent that this was a good idea, so I
Mm-hmm.
could say that as I moved up the line. You know, how could I do that? And I would always try to use what is essentially the idea of asking for their feedback on this idea. I'd give them an outline or a blueprint of what I was suggesting and ask for their opinion
Mm-hmm.
on this, right? Asking for their feedback was the right thing,
Mm.
but asking for it as an opinion, it turns out, is a mistake.
Mm.
When you ask for somebody's opinion, you get a critic.
It's true.
You get somebody who literally steps back away from you and goes inside themselves to search the pros and cons and come up with their inside opinion, right?
Yes. Uh-huh.
The research shows if you substitute for the word opinion the word advice,
Yes.
you get significantly more favorable reaction to your proposal.
Do you know what's interesting about that? As you were saying that, I imagined there's a great story in one of the other top three books that I recommend is My Life in Advertising by Claude Hopkins.
Oh yeah,
And it
an old
from
one. Yeah.
way, yes, old, right? Principle-based books. And in one of those, the salespeople are having a hard time selling the cotyledon, which was the lard type of product to bakers in this particular market. And he was called out to help them, settle it, to go figure out what's going on. Why can't they sell this in Boston? And he went into the largest baker in Boston, and he brought with him a picture that was, back then they had illustrations, they didn't have photography stuff. They were painted things for signs. And he asked the baker, he said, can I get your advice on something? This picture, and he set it up and he explained that this picture has cost me many hundreds of dollars, and it's meant to represent the perfect pie. And I want to get your advice. Is this what, how this, and as you said that, what I thought about is when you ask for somebody's opinion, they're sort of representing themselves and everybody that they're behind them when you're like them, that you're trying to influence.
Right.
And when you ask for advice, you're positioning them on your team.
That's right.
It's almost like opinion is the advice, you're getting the opinion of someone on the other team kind of thing.
You're exactly right. This is a unity enhancing
Yeah.
strategy, asking for advice.
Yes.
Because just as you say, when you ask for an opinion, it's okay, us, then me, I'm representing people like me against your idea, right?
Right.
And that's what when you say, can I get your advice? Now it's the two of you
How can we best present this
to everybody else.
Uh-huh.
There's a great quote. I think it was the novelist Saul Bellow who said, "When we ask for advice, we're usually looking for an accomplice." Right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, here's what the research shows: if you get that advice, you get that accomplice.
Yes.
You get that. You
Yes.
get that partner.
That's the best advice. That's so great. I
And
love that.
once again, there's no effort involved here. We
Yeah.
change the word opinion to advice. We, it's not doesn't even take a full breath to
Mm-hmm.
generate that difference.
Right.
And we get this big effect now. Right?
It's an instant, like you said, it's a click that already he's shifted over here that tells you what lens he's gonna reply from. It's
You know
amazing.
what it strikes me as worthy of supplementing? One of the most successful marketing approaches that we've had in many years, co-creation.
Mm-hmm.
It an effect that really works big, getting our customers, getting our prospects, getting our clients to help us co-create the next version of our products or services,
Mm-hmm.
what model,
The initial
what
version,
features
even.
we should add, which we should, and we ask for their feedback on this, right?
I've often launched new initiatives or new projects by recruiting what I will call a case study team, where I'm launching a new case study where I want to work with a handful of people to develop this new program. And you're gathering people I think that what happens is it feels like um, this is going to be extra attention because he really wants this to work. Like it feels like my ego's involved with the creating great case study results, right?
Yeah. So I'm a big fan of co-creation,
Yeah.
right? And I'm just saying there's an optimizer. I used to always ask for opinion. Give me your opinion on this.
Mm-hmm.
No, optimize your co-creation requests by asking for advice instead of opinion.
Mm-hmm. I love that. It's such a important distinction. As always, this is just my mind goes off on all the different ways to apply this, even when we're having the conversation about it. Um, I can't wait to reflect on it too. Um, since Unity seems like an exciting new development here, are there any more of the specific things that you have developed around unity that can um, how that can be deployed or how we can trigger that?
Yeah, we can, first of all, we can look for those things in the history or experience of the people we're trying to uh, move in our direction,
Mhm.
that we can legitimately say, oh, I'm a Packer fan too. Oh, I'm a runner too. Oh, I'm a firstborn too. Those kinds of things that are associated with an identity that we have.
Mhm.
We should sift through the information that people give about themselves on Facebook or LinkedIn and so on. It's not it's not embargoed information. They want us to have it, and where we find those things, we should raise them to the surface. We
Mhm.
become one of them, not like them. Look, you know that study I was talking about, the college student on the campus?
Yeah.
She didn't say, I'm a student like you. Student is just too big a category.
Right. Hmm.
She said, I'm a student here
Yes.
too.
Yes.
Now you're a Spartan or a Sun Devil or a Blue Devil or
Or
a Bruin or whatever. You're of them. That makes the difference.
one of puts something into light here that um, Gary Vaynerchuk, I don't know if you've met Gary or know him, but
No.
his express he's going to buy the New York Jets. That's his goal in life, to buy the New York Jets. And somebody asked him, what will be your, like, if you take over the Jets, what's your marketing playbook look like? And he said something that was really interesting. He said, job one will be to give every 5 and 6 year old kid in the tri-state area a Jets jersey
Mm.
on when they're 5 and 6 years old,
Mm.
to create that identity as a Jets fan. Because when they're 5 and 6, that's when they're either going to pick the Giants or the Jets, and it's the thing. So if you get somebody as a Jets fan early on, that now they're grow up with an identity as a Jets fan, just like you have as a Packers fan,
Right.
right? And that's a
Exactly. I know. That's
really
that's a
interesting thing.
really good strategy.
Create
And it
unity.
and I can say that it worked on me.
Yeah,
The Packers for okay, there's a British soccer team
yeah,
that I root for, and I'm not especially into soccer or the
yeah.
British athletics, but it's the Tottenham Hotspurs.
Hmm.
Somebody gave me a shirt
Yes,
when I was a kid,
yeah.
and it was a cool shirt, so I wore it, and
Uh-huh.
now publicly
Yeah,
I become a Hotspurs
yeah,
fan
yeah.
in the eyes of the people around me, which I identified, I internalized, and I've continued to be a Hotspurs fan
Yeah,
all my life for
yeah.
that.
That is so, you think about this now, it's like when I was young, my father was friends with this guy, Zenon Andrusician, who was a kicker. And he played in the NFL, played for the Tampa Bay Bucks. And when I was a kid, he gave me a Tampa Bay jersey. And it's been that I've been a Tampa Bay fan because we used to watch on TV, and there's Zenon, and it
Yeah.
was like a funny. Yeah, it's amazing when you really think about now that you've shone a light on it, all these like historical things that have happened that really illustrate it.
Well, let me give you a couple of other. You asked what other things could
Yeah.
you do to initiate a sense of unity? Um, and it turns out that there's one strategy that I saw Warren Buffett use that
Mhm.
was so disarming to me. It was on the anniversary. Now, Warren Buffett, whenever I ask when I do platform presentations to financial services firms, and
Mm.
Who would you say is the most successful financial investor of our time? And
Wow.
it's unanimously Warren Buffett. Warren Buffett. Okay,
Yeah, yeah.
all right. So, well, he and his partner Charlie Munger have started this business, Berkshire Hathaway. It's a holding company. They don't make anything. They just
Right,
invest in
right.
things, right?
Yeah.
And they have to convince us through their messaging, but mostly their success, right?
Hmm.
That we want to invest in them.
Hmm.
If we invest in them and they know what to invest in, then we do better.
You win.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah. So I happen to get the Berkshire Hathaway uh, shareholder report that he writes every year,
Yeah.
because I have a share of Berkshire Hathaway stock that I got one day,
Hmm.
and many years ago.
Hmm.
I went to my mailbox. There's a big envelope, and I opened it to find a note from Warren's partner, Charlie Munger. Right? He said, and it was attached to an A share of Berkshire Hathaway stock that
Wow.
was worth about $75,000 at that
Yeah.
time. And he said, "We have made so much money from your book that by your first principle of influence, reciprocity, you're entitled to something in return. Here's a share of the," right? Now, not only was that a good decision,
Yes.
I mean, a good outcome for me
Yeah.
financially. It
Yeah.
was a good outcome for me intellectually because I
And
now
financially.
get to read what he has to say
Hmm.
in all of his shareholder reports every year. He's a
Yeah.
brilliant communicator and
Yeah.
persuader, right?
Yes.
And on the 50th anniversary of Berkshire Hathaway, it was clear that he had to say something that would cause all of the people who own Berkshire stock to hold on to it and get other people to continue to buy it because it was 50 years now. He and his partner were no spring chickens. And
Hmm.
what happened? What if something happens to one or another of them? Uh, should I sell my stock now? By not, do you know what it's worth today?
Yeah.
Four hundred
I
thousand
know. Yeah.
dollars
Exactly. Yeah. Yeah. I've got
Okay.
one.
So should I
Yeah.
sell? And here's what he said in this stockholders report. He said, "I know a lot of people are asking themselves, what's the future profits like? What is the wisdom here? Should I sell or should I hold on to Berkshire?"
Mhm.
And then he launched into a set of merits of Berkshire that make it make sense to hold on to it. But he preceded that long dissertation, that long treatment of all of these strengths
Mhm.
by once again saying one thing that just convinced me never to sell. He
What was that?
said,
Yeah.
"I'm going to tell you now what I would tell my family
Mm.
if they asked me, right, whether to sell or hold on to Berkshire stock." And then he told us why he would hold on, right? He, the ultimate we group, the
Mm.
ultimate unity, the ultimate group in which we share an identity is our family.
Mhm.
He brought the power and the confidence of a we group just by saying, "This is what I would tell my family."
Mm.
And I never dreamed again of selling that share.
You know, there's an interesting thing because the distinction between what Warren does and what every other corporate report does is that his is presented as a letter to shareholders.
Yeah.
And it's the annual letter to shareholders. Like he's writing your Thanksgiving letter to say it was a good year. Bob and Babette had a great year,
Yeah.
and it was
Yeah.
good to see. And you're just catching up with family, right? To let everybody know what's going on. And there's no graphics, there's no beautiful, no posturing about it. It's just the words in from his heart as a letter
Yeah.
to one shareholder. And you look at the other corporate annual reports are very sterile and like removed from the personal sort of communication element of it.
Right.
And
And you know what else he does?
yeah,
Just it makes me shake my head at how smart he is. Um, he keeps your trust in his honesty and credibility and trustworthiness in presenting this information by mentioning on the first page or two of text
mhm.
in his letters something that went wrong that year.
The bad news. Yeah, yeah,
And he said, we've learned some from this. This won't happen again. But every other CEO buries what went wrong in
yeah.
some footnote someplace on
And
page
try and
28.
I'd fluff it up with charts and graphs and
Yeah,
projections and yeah.
he turns lemons into lemonade.
Mm,
In fact, a couple of years ago, uh, Berkshire had such a good year. There were no things that he made a mistake on. He didn't make any bad calls, any wrong calls. They were all positive. So you know what he did to show his willingness to be honest with us, that he may be a good, but he's not perfect, right? He's not perfect. He mentioned a mistake he made in 1993 when he bought a company called Dexter Shoes that went south.
yes.
He he's brilliant at this,
Wow.
giving us a reason to say, "Oh, this guy's being straight with us.
Yeah,
What's the next thing he's going to say? I'm going to
yeah.
believe that."
That's amazing. This is fascinating. Um, I've got some of these some of the things that were new things that you discovered in the book, and some of them jumped out at me that I wonder if we could talk about a couple of them. Because,
I would love to do that, but I want to finish the question you asked, which are the most surprising research? So
yeah.
besides advice versus opinions, um, do you know that online sites that have stars, that they can point to stars associated with them,
Mhm.
the greatest conversions don't come from 5-star sites?
Mm, I
They
didn't.
come from sites that have 4.2 to 4.7
Okay.
stars on the average,
Mm,
because 5-point star sites seem like they're phony.
yeah, yeah.
So
I saw
don't,
something that you had about how to spot, because you do see some of those things where um there's review farms. We've seen
yeah,
videos and things of all these people who just go and put fake reviews on things. And that's an interesting thing. If it's all five, that's a should be a red flag, of
it's a
course.
red flag.
Yeah. Is there anything to look for in within the reviews that will tip you off that it's a phony review?
Yes. People who use first person rather than first person language, me, I, that sort of thing. They're talking about themselves rather than the product because they don't really know the product. They're phonies. They're hired to write the good review.
Mhm.
Uh, Also, people who use a lot of verbs rather than nouns
Mhm.
because they're talking about, once again, themselves. going to buy the product, doing this with the product, um, writing the review. They're talking about themselves acting rather than the merits of the thing.
Yes, that's interesting. Yeah, this is all good stuff to be able to spot these things um, when they're happening. So amazing. I'm looking, Bob. I could talk to you all day here. I mean, I feel like we're just getting started here. Eunice had texted me that we're going to open up and maybe have some questions in the chat
Right.
from some of the people. So maybe Gina can share with us how to make that happen if she's there with us.
Hey, Dean, I think Gina is getting ready to post that. So if there are any members, I know BJ Fogg is on, and he had an idea in the chat that he posted. BJ, if you want to chat about that.
Have you been? I haven't been able. I never.
Oh, yeah. This was, yeah.
Anything.
Hey, BJ.
Well, hi. Well, maybe we do it as a surprise, but I just want to say this. Before I'd met you in person, and thanks to Joe, we crossed paths. Back in the 90s, your book was what I replicated with computers to see if computers could use these same principles and have an impact. And yes, it's so hardwired into us that computers respond to reciprocity. They respond to or people using computers, they reciprocate to computers. They liking matters and so on. So that for me was fascinating. Take your book, and I still have that version of it. It's so dog-eared, and design experiments and put those together. So thank you. You've had a huge impact on my career, my life, and I think so many people here as well. Thank you.
I remember those studies, BJ. I talk about some of them in the newer versions of Influence. Yeah.
Well, congratulations on your the new version. I'm sure that's a massive project, and you did it. Good for you.
We added 220 pages to the previous edition, so it's a major revision. Yeah.
That's awesome. Tarna.
Wonderful. I'm back here for you, Dean. All right, Michael Fishman, I believe, posted a question in the chat. Michael, if you're still on, if you want to ask.
Sure. Professor, good afternoon. Honored to see you.
Hi, Michael.
In the health category, brands and personalities are always trying to elicit trust from the prospect, to trust them to say yes, to provide an email, to make a purchase. And the fact is, for most prospects, the problem they're trying to solve, they've tried to solve in the past and failed. So not only do they have to test the new brand or the new personality making that promise, they have to trust themselves.
Yeah.
And I think they can trust the brand quite quickly. Who they can't trust is themselves. And I'm wondering if you would concur with that, and if so, how would you encourage a prospect or help them to trust themselves in that interface?
Here's where I would go with it, and that is social proof. That is, if you can show them evidence that a lot of people like them, who are comparable to them in circumstance, in age, in socioeconomic class, whatever the category might be, right, have been moving in this direction. That reduces their concern that, oh, this won't be right for me. It will be right for them if a lot of those who they see themselves as similar to do that. And I'm going to recommend something. If you're a startup and you don't have a lot of evidence like that, you can't point to great market share or hundreds of reviews of your product or service. What can you do? We've completed some work that suggests you don't have to have the majority. You don't even have to have a large number of people moving in your direction. You just have to have a trend.
Mm-hmm.
If you show them a trend in the direction of your product, that is more compelling than showing them the number at the end of that trend, right? So for example, we did a study where we were trying to get people to conserve water in the home, and we showed them evidence that 30% of people conserve water in the home, right? Another group was told 2 years ago 20% conserve water. Last year it was 25. This year it's 30. There was no question about it. Now, when we did a little experiment where we said, all right, now we're going to change strategies here, and we're going to do another experiment. It's a product test. We'd like you to try a new toothpaste, right? Here, right here in the lab, here's a toothbrush with some toothpaste. Brush your teeth and then fill out this questionnaire. What they didn't know was we were measuring how much water they used while they were brushing their teeth.
Oh.
Those who learned that there was a trend to 30% were much less likely to use a lot of water than those who just got the number 30%. So even if you don't have the majority, use a trend of people just like you, and you get the movement in their direction.
What kind of language would be some of the, synonyms or words around a trend? How would you language presenting the information of a trend?
Growth.
Growth. Mm-hmm.
That's the best one.
Mm-hmm.
You can say increase, you
Mm-hmm.
can say elevation, but
Mm-hmm.
growth has resonance. It means strength.
Yeah. And continuing, it
and
feels like. Yeah.
continuation.
Mm-hmm. That's brilliant.
We do have one person with their hand up. I believe it's Mai. If you would like to go ahead and ask your question, and then we'll take a few more questions from the chat.
Oh, yes, of course. Thank you very much. I just wanted to thank again Dr. Cialdini and express my gratitude to him. We've had a couple of great events in Romania here, and we were actually the first one to bring him in Bucharest in 2011. That's some great recollections. And thank you, Dr. Cialdini, for your books and your entire career and the things that I learned from you. I just wanted to have a couple of questions for you, because I'm continuing my studies and research in power of influence. But I wanted to ask you about two specific things. One is, in my opinion, one of the greatest dangers of today's digitalization process is the so-called immediateness. Everybody wants an instant gratification. Now, as far as I remember, influence is a process. Influence takes time. Now, how do we combine the two? I mean, there are a lot of people asking us for instant influence, if possible. Just a snapshot and then a question. Haven't I convinced you yet? So my question to you would be, how would you harmonize the two? This present immediateness, instant gratification, with the lengthy process of influence, which never happens in an instant. And then the second question would be, unfortunately, for the past years, we've seen this process of fake news, and it's been all over. If you look at it, especially nowadays, against this vaccination process that everybody wants to have it done. Now, as far as my research, my last research has been done. I compared some of the fake news that I found, and I came to the conclusion that some of them, they use your principles the other way around. So it's sort of an anti-Cialdini type of bad and evil influence. If you look, they use authority, but in the wrong manner. They use authority, but with the wrong people.
Mai,
yeah.
Would you sum it up into just a simple question for Dr. Cialdini, please?
just to ask a question, because I remember Dr. Cialdini places a great emphasis on ethics. Now, what should we do? What should we do so that we ensure this ethics of influence, Dr. Cialdini? Thank you very much.
Okay. Good questions. I'm going to start with the second one, which has been central to me since the beginning. We have to be ethical at this in order to keep our relationships strong and lasting. Otherwise, people just don't want to deal with us if they've been tricked into something, if they feel like they've been fooled. So how do we do this? And it seems to me we have to reward those people who have been ethical with us in the use of the influence process, and we have to sting those people who haven't. Let me give you an example from my own experience. A few years ago, I was in a electronic shop, a appliance store, and I was there for a different reason, but I saw a big screen TV on sale. It was a great sale, and I knew it was a very good set. And I was standing in front of it, and the salesperson approached me. He said, "I see you're interested in this at this price. I can see why. It's a great deal. But I have to tell you, it's our last one. It's our last one." And I just got a phone call from somebody, a woman who said she might come by this afternoon and buy it. And we'll be out of it. We have no more. You know, I'm supposed to be the godfather of influence. 20 minutes later, I'm wheeling out of the shop with that cart in my basket because of the principle of scarcity that just swept me into this decision. Now, here's the critical question. If he was honest and it was the last item, I needed him to use the scarcity principle on me. Because in that case, he was my ally. He was honestly informing me into something I needed to know in order to make a proper choice. Right? So I went back the next day to see if there was another model on that shelf, right? There wasn't.
Wow, so you felt validated. Yeah.
If I had not taken his advice, if he had not said that to me, I'm sorry, if he had not said it's the last one, and I went home to think it over and then came back the next day to buy it, or that evening to buy it, and it was gone, and he said, "Sorry, that's gone. That was our last one," I would have said, "What's wrong with you, man? It was your last one and you didn't tell us? You didn't tell me?" We have to, all right, so what do we do to reinforce this kind of behavior? I went immediately back to my office because he was telling me the truth. I wrote a 5-star review for this guy and the shop. If he had been not my ally, but my adversary by just tricking me into that, and there had been another model on the shelf the next day, I would have gone to my office and written a very negative review of it. I think that's how we go about handling these people who do this. We have to be instrumental online in commending them when they've been our allies and stinging them when they've been our adversaries in the process.
That's great. On reflection now, would you give it a 4.5?
No, I would give it a 5 because it was the real thing. But on average, it was still going to average out to be between 4.2 and 4.7.
The one that really gets me the most is scarcity. It's something that I wanted to tell you about this because in the last 48 hours, I'm constantly, as I said, observing things that are happening for me. So in the last 24 hours, I paid probably $1,800 more for something than I needed to because of the way that this was positioned to me. And I'll tell you the story of 2 domains that I bought, domain names, because sometimes I'll buy premium domain names for projects or for clients or for something that I'm working on. And in one case, there was a domain that I wanted to buy, and it was in the same price range. It was $3,200. And when I was presented with that it was available, the options that were presented to me were buy now or make an offer. Okay. So I made an offer on the thing and I said, well, I'll pay $1,000 for this one just to see the things. And I ended up getting it for $1,800. Now, fast forward, that was 6 months ago. This just yesterday, there's one that I wanted to buy. I went there and the options were buy now, $3,200, or start a monthly, buy monthly with $144 a month. Those were the 2 options that I had. And there was no other make an offer or contact us, but there was a phone number up in the thing. So I dialed the phone number and was going to say, I'd like to make an offer on this domain. And got voicemail. And they said, due to a high volume, there's no way to take your call. For fastest service, send an email to this email address. And so I sent an email and said, I'd like to make an offer on this domain name. I'll pay this much and I'll pay in full today. And then I waited and I've got no immediate response to this. And in the meantime, my fear of somebody else, this sitting there waiting, that this is a domain name that I've been waiting for 23 years to become available. And I just happened to check it, that it was, because I was having a conversation with someone else about it, and it was available, and it's staring me right there, the buy now or the monthly thing. And I still had gotten no reply to my email. And before I went to bed, I went ahead and bought it because I didn't want to lose out on it, even though I potentially could have saved money on that.
There's a great story that I learned from my contacts in the Netherlands. For the site booking.com, which is, it's the largest, hotel and vacation booking site in the world now. Well, they did something where they used exactly what you're talking about. When they first started to show you a room that you're looking at, that you're shopping, you're scanning, you're looking at various options, or they started saying, only X number of these rooms left at this price, and 2 other people are looking at it right now. The effect was that their customer service people called their technology unit and said, the system is broken because we've gotten so many, suddenly we've gotten so many deals, there must be something wrong with the system. And there's nothing wrong with the system. It's the power of scarcity plus competition.
Yes. That's the real, when you're saying like, that's the real thing, it's the most powerful, but it's so, like you said, that's one that often marketers try and smuggle into a situation. They try and smuggle that scarcity for without the validity of it. And that's
what we frequently forget is scarcity doesn't just apply to how many units we have or how much time is available. It applies to the features of the thing. If we have something that nobody else can provide, or some combination of features that is unique to us, that should be at the top of our presentation. because it means nobody else can get this, nobody else can give this to you, which makes us want this scarce thing.
Yeah. Yeah. That's awesome. Tarna, back to you. If we've got some other
I
questions.
was hoping we could go all day because we've got so many questions. All right, Sally Hogshead, I believe you are on and you had a question. We would love to bring you up and see if you'd like to ask Dr. Cialdini that personally.
Hey, Dr. Cialdini, you've done such a good job of creating for all of us a new way of thinking about marketing, not just psychology, but interaction, romance, friendships. So here's the thing when it comes to marketing our products. You've done such a good job of the principle of reciprocity. It almost doesn't mean anything anymore. You were almost too good with it. So here's my question. Imagine we're launching a product. We can give away bonuses. We can give away our time. What else can we give away? What's the 2021 version of reciprocity?
Yes, it's information that you can give to, if it's online, right? You can give to everybody about a particular arena or issue or set of circumstances that they find themselves in. Top 5 tips as to how to optimize your, but not with your product. That is, you're not talking about your product. You're talking about the decision they are making regarding this, or what they're going to do with the object or service afterward, or the top 3 mistakes that people make when deciding on this. You are giving them something not designed to enhance your,
not manipulating.
profile. You're just giving them something they can use. That's what I would recommend. Information.
Thank you. I appreciate your work.
So good to see you.
And you, I miss you.
Yes, I miss you.
What a wonderful question, Sally. Thank you for that. And Melanie Smith, I believe you are on and you have a question for Dr. Cialdini.
Okay, thanks, Tarna. I'll jump right into my question. I am loving this conversation, and my question is related to testimonials, client testimonials. So I think people's BS meters are pretty high on reading things and 5-star reviews. I totally agree. I'd be skeptical if I saw a 5-star review. What's the best way to use client testimonials in our marketing? These are from real clients, but how do we make them influence others? If they're too good to be true, people won't believe them. So should we ask clients who are writing testimonials to write something that went wrong and how we fixed it? Or do you have any other advice for us?
I would say with regard to stars, where on a review site, if somebody gives you 1 or 2 stars, you should definitely reply and say what happened and that you fixed it, or it wasn't. It's not a matter of what is true with our product. It was some glitch or something. Whatever it is, you have to reply to those people and genuinely own that review. Or if they didn't understand correctly, you educate them differently. That's just the way you do it. You just don't ignore it, or you don't try to suppress it. That's one thing you can do. But the other thing is, put your testimonials, your client testimonials and your expert testimonials first. They should go before your material, before your appeal, so that all of the influence that they carry is there from the start. We typically weave them through in our presentation, or they're at the end and so on. They should go first, and we should multiply them. There's a study that on expert voices who support us. And somebody once asked me, how do I amplify an expert position? You multiply it. You have more than one. The same is true with client or peer testimonials. You have more than one. And in there, you're going to have some maybe that's not as great as the top one. That helps people see it's credible.
That's so great. Very good.
Better and better by the moment, I think. Joshua Platter. I'm sorry, Dean, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, I see we've got some questions queued up here. I'm just looking at the time, so we need to keep moving here. Yeah.
A couple more.
Okay.
Joshua Platter, if you'd like to share next, please.
Hi. So I had a question regarding neurodivergence and the tools of influence. Let me just give a bit of background. So for years, I worked at a local center for twice exceptional youth. And something I noticed very, very quickly is there's a big difference between your everyday 7-year-old and a nonverbal chess savant from Russia. It's took maybe 2 or 3 works before I got them to say a single word to me, and that was checkmate. And I was really, I forget if it was in the book Influence or if it was in the book Never Split the Difference by Chris Voss, where there was just a few words that says, yeah, these tactics work unless you're dealing with an actual sociopath. And I was wondering, well, how well do these tactics of influence work on neurodivergent people, like say people with autism or sociopaths, people with ADHD? Is there any difference you found in your studies? Have you looked into this? And if so, what have you found?
So there are certain of the principles that work right from the start. So they're part of who we are as a species. They're likely to work for all of us, like scarcity, right? Like liking, right? There are others like commitment and consistency or reciprocity that have to be learned. We're socialized into those. Those won't work as well for those individuals. But the ones that are evolved into us, like scarcity and liking, those will work.
So if
Unity
I understand,
is another one that will work.
So group mentality and just basic principles of liking and scarcity work, whereas more things that are based off social conventions such as consistency are less likely to work.
Right.
All right. Thank you. And thank you again for hosting.
All right.
That's awesome. Great question, Josh.
Yes, absolutely, Josh. And I think just one more question, Dean, and I was going to see if Linda Clemens wanted to come on. Roger and Natalia, I apologize, but Linda, if you want to.
Thank you so much. I'm in a hospital with a friend, so that's why I'm not on the screen. But thank you so much for this information and just for the forum. I want to just comment on the law of reciprocity that Sally had brought up, Doctor. One of the things that that has helped me, and maybe that I've been invoking the law of reciprocity, that for the last 43 years, I've been holding events with no advertising, social media wasn't around then, none of that. And what was taking place is that when my people that attend the events, what was so interesting, I've been in sales all my life. I would find out what is their why, their desire, what they would walk the beam for. So let's say that they did not purchase something at any of my events. I would know so much about them that I would call and give them recommendations. Say, for example, Sally would be great with this, Sharon would be great for this and this and this and that. And I would do that with everyone in the beginning. And so when I needed something or wanted to invite them to something else where they would invest, then the law of reciprocity thought like, whoa, she gave first. So my philosophy is give first, be the first one to give. I would always give. And my granny would say, when you plant it in good ground, then you'll get good harvest. So I hope that's what because I've got I've followed all your works. You're about 11 years older than I am, but I just want you to know that thank you so much. And I'm glad Sally had brought that information up, because I think I've been using the law of reciprocity for a long time. I probably didn't know it.
You have been using the law of reciprocity, but what's brilliant about the way you did it was that it also credentialized you as an expert. By telling people, I know enough about you to know that this person would be best for you, right? What Sally has to offer. And so that establishes your knowledge and credibility along with your willingness to give, right? You've given them something special. And what that means by the rule that says you have to give back to those who have given to you what they have provided, they want to give back to you something special.
They do, doctor. They do. They bring people. That's why I never advertise. They bring people, and they didn't even want to do a virtual conference. We did 3 events during the pandemic with the hotel, with the Marriott, and they loved us. And people came in from all over. They constantly bring the right people. So I'm just grateful that
I get it.
This planet.
Fantastic. I love it.
Thank you.
Well, listen, this is, I can't believe how fast we went by. We've said it all. No, we haven't even scratched the surface of saying it all. We've had so much in here. This is going to be something that, I'm certainly going to listen back because there's so much that I want to even reflect on in this. In the chat here for everybody, this is one that you're going to want to save here, because in the chat we have links to everywhere that you can get. All of Robert's books are all linked right up here in the chat, conveniently for you to go and get those now. You can also connect with Robert on all of his social media. They've got his Facebook, Twitter, LinkedIn, YouTube, his YouTube channel. There's some great things in there. And there's so, boy, I hope that if you're new to Dr. Cialdini, that you have been lit on fire by this, that this will start a pursuit of knowledge in influence, and there's no better place to start than these books right here.
Well, thank you for letting us be part of this, and people can know about our new book. There's also a new online program that we have, our workshop. It's online, on-demand e-workshop with executive coaching.
I love it. And where can people find out about that? Do we link that in here as well?
They can find out about that on our website, influenceatwork.com.
Influenceatwork.com. So whatever you can do with Dr. Cialdini comes with my and Joe's highest recommendation. He's one of us. This is the so much so I remember the funny story that when we did our first I Love Marketing conference, Joe and I were so excited about it, and we all along, we didn't have any speakers at the event, but we knew you were in town and we wanted to have you by. We were on our way back to the conference from Eben's wedding at the time, and we looked at each other and said, did you text Bob and Babette about the event? Neither of us had texted you about it, and we texted as soon as we landed, and it found out that you were doing your event in the same hotel at the same time that we were doing ours, so we were able to have you over. And we've got that presentation is on our I Love Marketing on our I Love Marketing site.
I remember that.
So much great stuff to go there. So awesome. I appreciate you so much. You've been such an impact in my life. When we get back out of the pandemic here, I can't wait to be in Phoenix next time, and Joe and I can go out for dinner with you and Babette. And
we would love that.
To see you in person again. So thank you so much. This has been amazing. And everybody, thank you so much for participating. Come back next time. Tell your friends. Tarna, do we have the date for our next live meetup? We do these once a month, and they're amazing. So we want you back, and we want you to bring somebody with you when you come back.
Not only do we have our date set, but we already have our guest set too.
Okay.
It's going to be Mr. Evan Carmichael.
Oh, fantastic.
all things YouTube and getting your message out there, and everything you learned from today's talk on influence. YouTube is a wonderful medium for that. So that's going to be 11:30 a.m. Pacific. You register at ilovemarketingzoom.com. We'll have the page ready for you. If not today, tomorrow. And we've got to switch it all over from Dr. Cialdini now. And then on June 16th, same place, same time, we're going to have Paul Colligan. What's that?
I can't believe that's only 2 months away. That's only 2 meetups away. This is crazy.
Can you believe we're already like coming into the 5th month of Joe being on sabbatical? I can't.
No,
it's amazing. Okay, so Paul Colligan is going to go over what we're doing with Joe's podcast. So we invite you, Joe and Dean's I Love Marketing podcast. We're going back into the vault. We're pulling out some of the gold that they have sometimes buried in the episode. We're freshening it up for you, and we're releasing every week on the Genius Network podcast, I Love Marketing podcast, and 10X Talk podcast. So we're everywhere. Don't hesitate to consume as much as possible. But Paul's going to be here to share about us relaunching Joe's podcast, so to speak, while he's away. So please tune in for that. Again, that's our June 1. That is June 16th. And then Evan Carmichael, All Things YouTube. And what we've been doing on Joe's YouTube channel as well, and what a lot of our Genius Network members have been doing on YouTube to grow and get their message out to the world and change and impact lives. May 19th, 11:30 a.m. ilovemarketingzoom.com. And Robert, really quick, what's the official date of the new release?
Date is May 4th. But it's possible to pre-order now.
Of course it is. Can you pre-order multiple copies?
Oh, yes.
Yeah,
I went there and they said there's only 7 left and there's 4 people looking.
You know, one of my favorite...
At this price.
Oh, this is good. And you know, you can gift Kindle copies too. If you want to gift copies to your friends, this is good. It would be great to lead with the giving hand if you want somebody to think of you with a reciprocation light. This would be maybe a good start for you. So thank you guys. Tim, amazing. Tim's becoming a professional introducer. He did an amazing introduction.
Well, it was a privilege to introduce both of you gentlemen. You did a great job. I think if I've known Joe for 25 years, if he was here, he would have said, that was awesome. Can you
just really say that? Absolutely. That's why I didn't end without saying it. And everybody behind the scenes, it takes a village to put these on. So Gina and Tarna and Eunice and everybody that coordinates to make this all happen. If you don't want to, if you want to save everything from the chat, at the bottom right-hand corner of the chat window there's a little box with 3 dots in it. If you click that, you can save the chat. So you'll get all the conversation, all the links that we put in there, and you can check them as your leisure. And you want to do it now because as soon as this is over, they disappear. How's that for scarcity?
Whoa.
There you go. All right, guys. That's it. Thank you so much. We'll see you next time.
Thank you. It was lovely seeing you all.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Fun and stay well.
Thank you. Bye. Amazing.
It's great.
Thanks, everybody.
Excellent. Much love. Have a great day.
Yeah, outstanding stuff. Thanks so much.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Thank you. Very well done.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Loved it.
Thanks.
Thank you. Loved it. Great conversation.
Thank you.
Thanks, Dane.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I don't see how to save the chat on the 3 dots though.
In the chat bar, when you pop open the chat, you should see those 3 dots there, and you should have an option to save chat right at the top.
Yeah, it doesn't have it. I don't know why. It's got raise hand, chat, meeting settings, minimize meeting.
It
I don't know
might
why.
be because you're on your phone.
Yeah, maybe you can do it because it's on your phone. Yeah.
Yeah, on the phone. Dang it.
Yeah, set yourself up for these 3rd Wednesday of every month to be on a desktop because the chats are so valuable. Just like at the
Oh my
very end,
gosh.
please plug in and be on a desktop,
Yeah.
not an iPad or an iPhone, unfortunately.
Thank you for that. Yeah, fortunately, I was at the dentist. Couldn't do it.
Ooh, that's no fun.
Could have had that. Yeah. Thank you so much. Awesome. You guys are the best.
Thank you so
Thank you,
much,
Tana.
Jackie.
Thank you. Great. That was great.
Right, closing it down in 5,
Thank you, guys. Take care. Bye, Tana.
3. Bye-bye, everyone. See you next month with Evan Carmichael.
Wow, you guys are the best. Thank you.
You're welcome.